Welcome to the 5th episode of this 7-part series on the history of the Great Kingdom of Buganda.
Njagala Kasai means I need blood. Yeah, I need blood. Yeah. When you hear it just openly, it sounds...
It's very eerie and scary.
yeah. It is even scaring, but it has its hidden meaning.
This world is being led by the dead. This world is being led by the dead.
Yeah, in Africa, actually, we almost had similar beliefs. Kings could be buried with a lot of items, to the extent even they were buried with servants.
Ah.
Yes. Now, when it comes to Buganda...
People are buried alive?
Yes, yeah. Actually, it was a pleasure to bury with the king.
Era nze nsanyukira ddala kubanga ekyamazima zaali ssaawa 2 ennaku z'omwezi 16 omwezi ogwokusatu.
You're dealing with the living, you're dealing with the dead. In the process of rebuilding, I have had to deal with history. I've had to deal with the future.
Engamba yi, ani ayo kizze ebisaaniiko ekiro kino okumpi n'ennyumba n'entuukayo mu mazima nasanga ennyumba yeekutte.
Depends on what we appreciate as our own. For this is Kasubi Tombs. It's your own, it's ours, it's Ugandan.
N'enkuba enduulu naye abali munda nga tebawulira n'ennyingirira ddala ne mbagamba banaye mufulume.
Ensonga lwaki bw'olaba ennyumba muzibwazaalampanga eyakwata omuliro mu 2010 bwe tubali tugizizaawo nga bwe yali.
Naye kale mpulira essanyu kubanga kati njirabako kubanga luli nagakaaba ne ŋŋamba yi nga tufudde ekitiibwa ky'Obuganda okuggwaawo.
Mu lubiri tebavugiramu ggaali, temukookolimirwamu nkoko empanga kuba Sseggwanga ali atya, ali omu ye kabaka.
Missionaries came preaching Jesus Christ as the king.
Yeah.
And we had kings here. We could say, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, let your kingdom come. We had kingdoms here.
Our ancestors cannot be satanic, no. They once lived like us. If you say they are satanic, then when you also die, you will become satanic.
In this 5th episode, we talk about the tragedy that saw this place burned to the ground, and we set ground for a future discussion on spirituality before the Europeans arrived and branded it heathen. It's important that you watch the whole series for context. Although we had intended to produce this series in vernacular, to reach as many people as possible, these Buganda tapes are presented in English. Any factual corrections will be addressed in a pinned comment. The conversation begins right now. Welcome to the Buganda series. I'm your host, Jonathan Benaya. Now, I must state that there will be segments in this series that include comments that are made in vernacular, or call it Luganda. So if you're listening to this in audio form and would like a translation, I've left a link down below in the notes where you can access a video form, a video version of this whole series, and there you'll have subtitles for the Luganda translations. But if you understand Luganda, then I guess you can access the series wherever you prefer. All right, let's get right in.
It's now all gone. The cultural paraphernalia that were on display and said to have all been burnt are irreplaceable items to Buganda Kingdom.
Uganda and the entire Africa has lost the integrity and authenticity of the Kasubi tombs.
Kasubi Tombs were also an outstanding example of Buganda's architecture and a living testimony of their traditions. What caught fire last night is known as Muzibu Azala Mpanga. It had a circular plan with a dome-like shape.
Elvis, tell us what you know. What happened on that particular day? What exactly happened?
Actually, it's the tragedy which cannot be forgotten in the eyes and the memories of the people of Buganda when the mighty heart was struck with fire. There is no report which was made on what exactly actually caused the fire up to date. Yeah, they never revealed what exactly fire came from. It is claimed that it was an accident. Yeah, since the house, they are mostly vegetal material. They are very prone. Any mistake, even a small mistake, the house is gone. Yeah. People came running from different parts and the directions of the kingdom to see what exactly. Actually, many came running with an idea of saving some of the items, like the leopard. Yeah, there was a leopard. There are some specific spears. Like Daudichwa has some golden medals here. Many came running having hopes of saving some. Yep, some were saved actually. We have artifacts which were saved. But unfortunately, others, we lost them. Yeah, in the fire. Yep.
I actually remember being on the news. I must have been in secondary school back then. And it was such a very sad evening here. Around what time would you say that particular fire started?
Actually, it was clicking 8 p.m. in the late evening. Yeah.
Because I remember it came on as breaking news during that evening news. Yeah. Okay.
Actually, people moaned. When you were fire, you thought that maybe someone has died. It was a real mourning.
As you mentioned that quite a lot was lost, and so unfortunately that stuffed leopard that belonged to Mutesa, Ssekabaka Mutesa the first, unfortunately was lost in the fire. It couldn't be saved. But what particular, if I could call it, regalia would you say was saved or made it through the fire?
Yeah, among these regalia we have some of the spears. Okay. Yeah, some of the spears were saved. There are some rings of these kings which were also saved. Some are actually golden rings.
Like actual pure gold?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, like the ones of King Daudichwa. They could put on rings on their like arms. Even Mutesa I, he could put on rings. When you read the picture of Stanley, which he made through the Dark Continent, yeah, he said when I looked at Mutesa from his toes, he had some rings on the fingers and so forth. Yeah, some were saved. Even the canon, there was a canon, it was given to King Mutesa I as a gift from the Queen of England. Now this one was metallic in nature. Yeah. So it was easy to save it actually. Yeah. There was that metallic canon. Yeah, those are some of the few items actually which were saved. Yeah, through the fire.
But majority of the things were lost.
Yeah. We had some stools. These were two. But also gifts. They were made in. These stools were made in Austria, and then the Queen of England, Victoria, gave them to King Kabaka Mutesa as gifts. Maybe thought he had only one wife for him and his wife. Yeah, they were here. There were two stools. They were very unique in nature. Yeah, they were made in Austria. Yeah, we also lost them.
Wow, that's very, very sad. Let's perhaps also talk about the collective will of the Baganda people to reconstruct this place. I did see the Prime Minister, Katikiro as he's called in Buganda, did, I guess, do quite a lot of moving around, collecting funds and support to restore this place. What does that speak about the unity of people of Buganda?
Yeah, actually, this is not only the unity of the people of Buganda, because Kasubi Tombs, actually, we call it a masterpiece of African creativity and human creation of its kind. So the significance which it holds is not only for the people of Buganda, but also to the people outside Buganda. You find many people in Buganda who love and support the king, yet they are not Baganda. But there are many who are positive towards the king, because the king is a whole. And what has made this kingdom strong for the past generations is that issue of the assimilation policy. It's not a must that for you to be a Muganda, you must be born in Buganda. We have people who are Baganda and they're not born in Buganda. But since they are willing to work with the king and serve him, they were adopted. They are assimilated in the clans. Yeah, somebody comes from Ankole and is called a name called, say, Ainomu Juni. When he comes, I call you Walusimbi. Walusimbi, you are now a member of the Fumbe clan. You become part and parcel of that given clan. So this, when the Katikiro went out, made that call to support and restore this heart, many people came in, even those who are not Baganda. Each person brought what he would wish it could support the restoration of this place. Some people even brought plant material. Somebody would say, I have a land where you can cut the grass, I have it. Actually, when I was talking to some of the engineers here, some of the reeds were got from Bunyoro. Side of Bunyoro. So you see how the unity moves out not only from the people of Buganda, but goes wide to the entire country. Because this is not only now a site to the people of Buganda, it is now a place to the people of Uganda. And actually it is protected by the government of Uganda. So whatever happens here, the government is also held responsible. So it also contributed to the restoration. Yes.
I hope you're enjoying this segment. Now we're going to have to take a journey to the Butikiro, which I understand is the official residence of the Prime Minister, the Katikiro of Buganda. And this is where the offices of the Buganda Heritage and Tourism Board are found. And here I'll have a chat with the Executive Director, the Acting Executive Director of the Buganda Heritage and Tourism Board. And I'd like to understand what is given priority, whenever there is, if I could say, a death of maybe a royal, a prince, a princess. I'd like to understand whether the tombs are closed off to tourists so that those important ceremonies, royal ceremonies, take place. So let's head to the Butikiro and speak to the Acting Executive Director of the Buganda Heritage and Tourism Board.
Jonathan, we represent Uganda, and Uganda is one of the friendliest people, has one of the friendliest people around here. Buganda is the gateway to Uganda. So the people in this palace, just as we skew in our discussion, are actually friendly. If we take it from the latent side, these people are coming to mourn with the queens and the mothers, their beloved. So, Tuan, it is they welcome every visitor, and it's a way of celebrating, because if they were not important or if they were not of significance, then nobody would have visited. So it's within our culture as Baganda, as Buganda, as Uganda, to welcome these people. I know you're one of us, you're a member of this particular community. Remember, Buganda or Baganda is a collection of different people. But for this particular site and community, it's for the royalty of the Baganda. So if in the instance of demise, in the instance of passing on of a royal, definitely the burial or the setting of this particular stage would be for that royalty to be rested the best way possible. Remember also that this is a living heritage. The people therein are real. Definitely they have to mourn their dead. Definitely they have to inter their dead. They have to dance or celebrate their dead. And at the end of the day, we have to give them a sanctuary, a good space for this to happen. There are different approaches to it, but in terms of business, we close part of the business to celebrate with the royalty, to celebrate with these people in this shrine. It does not only serve as a tomb, but also serves as a shrine for some of us, for some people who believe in the traditional religion. So Kasubi Royal Tombs partially will serve the community therein, but also those who come to serve, to celebrate and appreciate this particular event.
Okay. Let's just talk about revenue. Is the money from tourism enough to sustain the site, or are you funded by any... I know the kingdom is indeed very rich. You have a lot of land. But I'm interested in knowing how are you able to maintain, from a funding, a finance perspective, how are you able to ensure that the money does come in to protect, conserve, and ensure that the developments at Kasubi continue to happen?
I want to approach this from the Afrocentric point of view. Yes, we are wealthy. In terms of the resources, the land, in terms of what we've kept intact, that is wealth in itself. However, there are things that demand for investment, recouping. These sometimes require more investment. We've had to write some proposals, grant proposals, to see that we are helped in different ways. When these people were burying here people or keeping their royalty here, they did not have much plans for us to do education here. So why don't I do student exchange programs here? By that, to have the educational program integrated, I would need the likes of the Japanese embassy, the Austrian embassy, to come in and help us. So that when their students come in here, we have people who can speak the language, they can understand, packaging it to the curriculum that they need and all those other things. We're talking about now research in what we need to give to the people out there. The information, how packaged it is. Kasubi Tombs is very important. You cannot talk about Buganda, you cannot talk about Uganda, especially the independence era, without Buganda. We cannot talk about the Uganda matters without Kasubi Tombs, because here rests Ssemwanga, who was at the conundrum of the events that happened in 1889, 86, 87, those years that fused us to the other bigger world. We cannot talk about Kasubi Tombs and forget about the first president of Uganda. You know, we cannot talk about the developments, the first tin house in this country. We cannot talk about the parliament, Luchiko area, Bulange Mengo, and then we talk about the main parliament. You know, I see the people who are groomed in Luchiko, Legiko, getting out of Uganda and going to the central government to form the big Uganda. So there is so much than what meets the eye. And that's the reason some of us are here.
You've talked about the government, and I think earlier on in our conversation you mentioned UNESCO as another party that has interest in this place. Yeah. Is there any other entity, like if I could use that as a term, that is actively involved in the conservation and restoration of this place? Or is it just is it a tripartite arrangement where you have Buganda, the central government, and UNESCO?
Yeah, other organizations actually which are highly based on the front is the government of Japan. Yeah. Okay. The government of Japan directly funded the restoration process, most especially even installing the fire systems in this place, yeah, the government of Japan was in the forefront.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the most actual reputable figures,
Yeah.
which you cannot put in the side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And of course, when you've mentioned the government of Japan helping, now have there been any safeguards put in place during the restoration process to ensure that that ugly incident never happens again?
Yeah, besides installing the fighting equipment and the red points all around, because we have red points in each and every corner here, and we do carry out drills.
Okay.
Drills like trainings. So all these are mentored to the people who live here.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's nice that people are trained here.
Yeah, they're trained. People are trained here.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So when the house is fully complete, they'll even cut this entrance. They'll carve it in a way which easily affords people to come inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of final, as per now, the house is on 97%.
Okay, so it's just those final details.
Yeah, those final ones. Yeah, the ones which are remaining. Okay. The actual restoration began immediately after the fire. They had to even to cover forest, because not everyone has to see what is happening in the forest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had to cover it very well. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Well, you've done a very good job already. Yeah. I came here when I was very young, so many years ago, and I remember when you talk about like the cutting at the opening. I remember the old site actually had a much bigger entrance. Yeah. So when I came in, I was actually wondering why
is it very low? Yeah.
I also imagine that the delay, I wouldn't call it a delay, but this long process that has taken was partly delayed by the many rituals that have to take place. I imagine it's not just the access to the resources or manpower. There must be a lot of like spiritual things that have to happen for you to be able to construct a house that is fit for the kings, and not just one king, but 4 kings that rest here.
Yeah, most of them actually, as I said, they are not visible. You cannot see that specific thing that this clan or this particular person did this. And actually, most of these rituals, many of them were hidden. Yeah, they couldn't even reveal them to the normal people because if some were revealed, maybe they lost meaning. Yeah, they were too hidden, and if in case they whisper to you how they could do that particular thing, it could alarm maybe your ears that, how can they do all that? Yeah, so there are a lot of rituals. The ritual which sparked, I think, the world, it was we're reaching 2015. Putting in the center pole of this hut, it had its own particular rituals which are done unto him, how it was uprooted, how it was brought here. Even the engineers were quite amazed with that full process. Yeah. Now it was two-way. People, all the like the custodians of culture had to play their work, and the engineers who are brought here to see how they could mix the modern construction method and the ancient, they could also play their work. So most of them were even amazed to see those hidden rituals which were done here. Yeah, most of them are very, 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 very hidden. Okay. Yeah.
Is there any plan to bring some of those materials that were, I guess, saved during the ugly incident? Are they going to be brought back on display?
Yeah, they'll be brought back, and it will be a full ceremony to bring them back here. Now, when you look at King Daudi Chwa, he was a Sir. When you go that side of the English side, and he had even engaged himself at the end of the Second World War as a captain. There are those specific medals and ranks which he had in the army. Yes, some we lost them, some were retained. And there are some other future plans that the government of England will bring those particular ones. Yeah.
Interesting. And when you actually talk about medals, I'm reminded that the kings of Buganda did participate in some international wars. Of course, you've talked about Sekabaka Daodichwa. I think his son as well.
Yeah,
I'm not
Mutesa
sure.
the second.
Yeah, which year, which war was that?
Mutesa the second served mainly in the Grenadier Guard of the Queen. Yeah, and as a token of appreciation, he got even that title also of a sir. Yeah. So him, for the British to give you a segment to lead in the war,
you must have been very good.
Yes, must have been very, very good.
Yeah.
So he was a captain of a segment actually in the Second World War. Nice. Yeah.
Okay, since we're talking about fire, there is fire that seems to burn continuously in the courtyard. Yeah. Perhaps let's also talk about that as well. What is its significance?
Yeah, it has a unique significance. Since we have that belief that we have a connection with the spirits, it is believed that even the spirits of the kings, where they relax and enjoy the warmth from that fire. For those who pray, who want again to whisper the wishes, they can also go there. Yes, they can have in their heart a belief that this is a place where the spirits sit and pick the warmth in the night. Yeah.
Okay, similar to how like our ancestors sat around the campfire and shared stories. The kings still go there to, you said, seek warmth. Interesting. Is that the case in all the palaces around the kingdom that you would go to, and also the tombs as well? Do you have a continuous burning fire?
Yeah, most of the tombs there is a continuous burning fire. And anciently, when you read in the books, these books of Stanley's, they always used to say that these fires used to be inside this hut. So me myself, I imagined how could fire be inside a hut? Can it cause a tragedy and the whole hut catches fire? But it was no fire could be inside here. But this was done intentionally, like to smoke the interior. By smoking, they could repel away dangerous vermins like termites, mosquitoes, anything which could destroy the house. So smoking was done intentional. Actually, on the reign of Mutesa, fire could be inside here.
Wow. But this place wouldn't catch fire.
Couldn't catch fire.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. And when you talked about termites, actually, as I was wondering, because this could all be finished by a termite. It's very creative that our ancestors were so creative.
Yeah, so they could smoke. You could enter here when the rings are black, totally black. Yeah, but it was all intentional.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting. And now, since we've talked a little bit about that incident, let's now go into a segment around religion and how it was, and probably still is for some Baganda people. What roles does spirituality play in Buganda as a kingdom? What beliefs do people have? What gods? Because I know before the coming of the Europeans, the missionaries, and perhaps also the Arabs that brought Islam here, I'm sure people had their own religion in this part of the world. You mind just telling us a bit about that and how things are today?
Yeah, in African traditional society, I cannot say that we never knew God.
Yeah.
When they brought Christianity, whites claimed that we never knew God as Africans. But we knew God as a supreme being, as the supreme creator.
Yes.
God was there. And again, we had ancestors. We believed that ancestors could connect us, or they're like pipelines to reach us to the
spiritual realm.
Yeah, to the spiritual world. So used to pray through them. So you find that due to a specific event, they had a specific god which was worshipped for that time. God for birth, God for rain. This was God for maybe this particular item. If you gave birth to twins, you could worship this god, you could thank this god. So he had different like gods for each purpose, like spirits for each purpose. We believe that these spirits could link us to that direct. Even when they were going for wars, there is a god which they could worship, or they could first pray that please help us to do this. When they went for hunting, I hear Dungu was the best one when it came to hunting. You couldn't have a successful hunt.
Now for the rest of this segment, I'm going to have to bring in Prince Joseph Mulondo to give us an even better understanding of these indigenous beliefs. And together with Elvis for the rest of this episode, as well as the first half of episode 6, we'll have a deep dive into the religion, spirituality, and traditional beliefs of the Baganda people. Prince Mulondo is the great-grandson to Ssekabaka Daudi Chwa II, who we know is one of the 4 great kings resting here at Kasubi. He has written a fantastic book titled Buganda, the Glory of an African Kingdom, for which I understand the foreword was written by His Majesty the reigning Kabaka of Buganda, Ronald Muwenda Mutebi II. I'm fortunate to own an autographed copy of the book, and I recommend you get your own copy as well. Alright, let's get right in.
Well, before we had our traditional religion, which was the means of speaking to our Creator. And that was respected everywhere in the kingdom. The structures were clear. We called our Heavenly Father or God Katonda, which is a Luganda word that means God the Creator. And we knew he lived up in heaven, so he was not on ground. But there was a belief that the Heavenly Father is going to be quite busy if we all whisper our wishes at the same time. So there were small gods who were not physical people. They were spiritual gods. And so there was no traffic in that. But these small gods were not supreme. They were supposed to hold our message and take it direct to the Heavenly Father. There were shrines for those small gods, and that's where people would go to whisper their wishes. That's why when religions came here, it did not shock our leaders, because we knew God very well. But the way we worshipped him was different from how the other religions did it. I think it was very crucial. It kept people united. It kept people disciplined. Ethics, generally. Humanity. Because our traditional religion is, if I'm to broaden it, it's humanity. It is built on a foundation of humanity. And I guess it's the same foundation in the other foreign religions that came with the Arabs and the missionaries. Yeah. If you compare this with Christianity structure, the small gods, I would call them angels, or some people might call them saints, but these are angels. Why I say they are like angels? Because they were not having physical body. We knew that this is a spiritual small god, and they were answerable to the heavenly God.
Katonda, as you
Katonda, the creator, God the creator. And so, when we come to the structure of the king was not God also. But if I'm to borrow some words in the Christian religion, the king would be looked at as archbishop who was the head of the
chief priest.
The chief priest. But he was also not in the picture of God. So it was to make sure that everything is in proper line. Do the small gods have their shrines? Are people going in the right shrines? Are their prayers being answered? That was the mode, and that was the position of our king in a traditional religion. Then when it comes to the royal family, how they also worshipped. The royal family, they always whisper their wishes to God through their ancestors. There's no way you could jump your ancestral chain and go direct to the heavenly God. That's being disrespectful of God's creation. We have been led by 36 kings in Buganda. And so, if you claim to be a member of the royal family, you must tell us you come from which king. Where does your royalty come from? Who connects you to the main royal family? When you talk about your grandparents, where is the connection with the past kings? That's how we prove. Now, if you are able to tell us that, then through those ancestors, whisper your wishes to the heavenly God.
The king is taken to be that is a person who bridges the gap between his people and the spiritual world. Actually, the reason why the king is called Kabaka, Kabaka comes from the verb of okubaka, like receiving information from, he receives information from the gods on behalf of his people.
As the modern people would call downloading.
Yeah, Abaka, he receives information on behalf of his people.
Yes.
Even today, like the staunch believers in the religion, like recently, like last year, the current king, he had taken time without visiting the palace.
Yes.
Now, the day when he visited, we were in the such season, very, very dry season.
Yes.
The day he stepped in the palace, received rain.
Oh, wow.
So we find some people say, yes, the king has come. At least our prayers have been answered. The rain was too much. It rained that whole day. So
and there could only be one explanation to that.
Yeah. So people say, it has rained today. How? The king, because the king is here, he has come. So this proves that he has those special, magnificent powers. Yeah, from the spiritual world.
When we see people coming here at Kasubi, especially the royals and those who are not royals, and they kneel before these kings, they are not worshipping them. They are whispering their wishes through their ancestors. Kings were not in the picture of God, but they are in a clear line to connect us to our God, the Creator, Katonda. Today, the modern religion is destroying this partly. It is misinterpreted, but I think it is the responsibility of the current generation to awaken our people that this is not satanic. Our ancestors cannot be satanic, no. They once lived like us. If you say they are satanic, then when you also die, you will become satanic. So generally, that's how we worshipped.
What fascinated the king at the time? Because you said we had our own religion and ways in which we worshipped. What in particular fascinated him about, let's use the example of Christianity? Was it resurrection? Was it...
Well, when you talk about the coming of religions here in Buganda and Uganda, it drives me to talk about two kings. The first king is King Suna, who is resting at Wamala Tombs. He's the king who welcomed the first Arabs. Actually, Arabs were the first foreigners. And they came here in 1844. These people came as traders. And preaching Islam was an extra activity they did. That's why Islam did not spread rapidly, because the Arabs were more in business. It was ivory and slave trade then. Then when we come to Mutesa I, a son of King Suna, who received the first Europeans, that was John Speke and James Grant. These people were trying to search for the source of the Nile. And they found it in Jinja. So they got a chance to meet our king, though they didn't go deep a lot since they were on a mission. Then later in 1868, Mutesa I welcomed Henry Morton Stanley. Henry Morton Stanley was an English-American journalist who was sent to find Dr. Livingstone, dead or alive. Lucky enough, he found him in Tanzania at a place called Ujiji, where he said a common slogan, Dr. Livingstone, I presume. But because the explorers had written about Buganda, they were interested and excited to expand their adventure into this kingdom. So Henry came and met Mutesa I. By then, Mutesa was not yet at Kasubi. He was on a different location, Rubaga. So that's where they had their meeting. Mutesa was introduced to the Western culture by Henry Stanley in detail. The Western culture included reading, writing, and Christianity. We didn't have all these things, honestly. But Mutesa was very much impressed by the skills of communication, the new skills of communication, the skills of keeping our records. If you get to research more, you find that we didn't have formal literature of our own as Baganda. There has been oral tradition, oral. And so Mutesa saw that this is a new opportunity to learn the new skills of keeping our records. Because most of the old people then died with those facts. They died with the information. So this was an opportunity to acquire new skills, and so his people can document this history. And this is what impressed him. So he requested Stanley to send teachers who will teach his people these skills, how to read, how to write. And he said, and teach my people how you worship your God as well. It will be up to them to decide if they wish to worship in that direction. So Henry wrote a letter on behalf of Ssekabaka Mutesa I, and it was published in the Daily Telegraph in England, which defined Buganda as a garden full of fruits, ripe fruits, but only waiting for harvesters. So this convinced to come and harvest. This convinced the missionaries, and the first group of missionaries to respond to this call was the Church Missionary Society. So I should say the coming of the first missionaries, it was on invitation of our king, Ssekabaka Mutesa I. Basically, to teach his people how to read and write, but also more about their Western religion. So we greatly remember Mutesa I for his visionary support of education in our country. He would have asked for tangible things, shoes, clothes, because these people were well dressed. He would say, when you come back, bring me shoes, bring me clothes. But I said, no, send me teachers who teach my people.
He's a very wise king.
Very wise, yeah. So that's what convinced our king to invite these missionaries. And in exchange of teaching us how to read and write, then Christianity was also introduced here.
Yeah, so when Christianity came, I would say Christianity came with controversies because Christianity was more a way of life to the people in the Western world.
Yeah.
Christian missionaries came preaching Jesus Christ as the king.
Yeah.
And we had the kings here.
Yes.
They could say, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. let your kingdom come. We had kingdoms here. So that's how Christianity and African traditional religion, they even became parallel. They will never meet because Christianity, to make matters worse, violated most of the African traditional practices, calling them satanic, backward. That's how even the issue of the Uganda matters came in. These Uganda matters of the church.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, these matters, when you go to the side of the church, they are heroes. They are saints who died of their faith. When you come to the side of the kingdom, matters are rebels. They disobeyed the king. Yes. So when you read a book, it's called The Untold Story of Martyrdom. Yeah. The Untold Story of Martyrdom gives a very good picture on many things about the matters. Because when you go to the church, most of them have ill preachings on King Mwanga. He was a bad king, he killed the martyrs, what. A lot of things are said unto him, but here we call him a hero, Mwanga. He was a man who fought for his culture with a high, with that overwhelming ambition. Because he noticed that Christianity is pushing away his kingdom. To make matters worse, most of his subjects in the palace, servants, they changed to Christianity. They went to serve the church. So this was like treason. And
they were indeed rebels.
Disobeying the king, the penalty was death. So they served their punishment. Actually, in this book, the author says these matters were victims of the system they never understood. Colonial policies used them as weapons against their fellow Africans. Christianity is good, but it was brought with intentions.
It was weaponized.
Yes. The flag followed the cross. They never gave us Christianity because they love us so much. But they had intentions with giving us Christianity. They soften your heart, please forgive, what, then they take your land. And you remain calm, you don't even fight back. So that's how they use Christianity as a weapon. Among the matters, we have a boy called Kizito. He was a boy of 14 years. This author says, how can a 14-year-old boy understand the politics of the British? So he claims that most of them died of ignorance. Because for them, they believed after death, they will come back. They will resurrect, because that's how Christianity preaches. Actually, most of their fellows even ran into hiding. That side of like Lule. They waited for their friends to rise again. Up to date, they never came back. So they went into hiding. So when Christianity came, it brought controversies. Some people had to turn to Jesus Christ, which was good. And others resisted against it, especially those who are closer to the king and so forth.
I also read, when I go through history, and different scholars do write about how important the umbilical cord was, especially among the royals. Do you mind telling us a bit about that practice? Why was it important? Where are those parts kept, and why? What is the significance around it?
Actually, when you reach in the context of intelligence and knowledge, our ancestors had quite some good experience and knowledge, because scientifically, an umbilical cord holds a high number of stem cells of the DNA of a particular person. Scientifically, in the normal life, the umbilical cord has everything. When you want to prove somebody that they are related. So I don't know how our ancestors came to know about that, because
they must have been very wise.
They never gone to school. They never knew that strong science in it. But an umbilical cord is mostly used to prove a child who belongs to the king or who belongs to the royal lineage. Yeah. There are many procedures which are taken to test this particular umbilical cord. And again, these kings had a number of wives. I would say it was not easy for them to easily mess up having children who do not belong to the royal lineage. You had to be very careful. If you are found out, then you could serve a penalty for that. Yeah. So they are highly preserved. Actually, we call them twins to the king.
If I use a layman's language, God created two people, a male and a female, gave them the power. That is now in traditional religion. Gave them the powers to reproduce. It is why we believe that everything in Buganda moves in line of twins, abalongo. Because God is always in double. In creation is double. A male and a female. The eyes are two, the nose is two, the ears is two, the arms are two, hands are two. Twin, abalongo.
Like you hear a person saying the twin to Daudi, a twin to Mtesa, twin to Mwanga, twin to Mtesa too, and imagine which twin. As it has a brother, there is mean the umbilical cord of that particular king.
Okay, because when I visited Wamala, the Wamala tombs, they had a particular house that I think was housing remains of some. I think they also talked about twins of some sort.
Yeah.
Okay.
They are preserved in a high way that they don't even expose them to everyone. Yeah. Okay. They're not exposed to everyone.
So the rituals that we still perform here, those that I can disclose, because we have those that are
too sacred to share.
That is with us. It's our intangible values.
Yes, that's understandable.
One of the rituals we still do here is when a prince or a princess who is a descendant of these four kings is born, that child has to be officially introduced to the ancestors. And that ceremony is called confirmation ceremony. In Luganda, we call it okwalula. Okwalula omwana is to confirm, confirmation ceremony officially. And the umbilical cord, the navel, when a child is born, he has that, umbilical cord piece that a mother has to keep very carefully. During that time of confirmation, the mother has to present it before the custodians of this heritage. We've got a couple of old ladies who are in positions of the past widows of the king. And then that umbilical cord is woven in beads to create what we call a ritual object, in Luganda, omulongo. Every prince and princess must have omulongo. Why we call it omulongo? Because omulongo means a twin. It is becoming the second part of you. You are the main one, but you have your twin, the umbilical cord, which is kept. This is evidence to the future generation that this person existed and he was a member of this family. That's one of the rituals that is performed here.
Interesting. Yeah. How often does the sitting monarch visit? How often does the king, the current Kabaka, visit here? Is there a schedule, or does he just come whenever he feels
There is no schedule, because he can come at any time. Yeah. Like a few weeks back, we even never expected him. We were here and he arrived. You just hear people say, running. The king is here. People running each and every direction. The king is here. The king is here. So they are preparing everything. Like, the king is here. And he comes in here. And when he comes here, I will say it is happiness for the people who live here. Because when he leaves, he makes sure that everyone is happy. Everyone is happy. Not only in the pocket, but everyone is happy. So whenever he comes here, so you find people smiling all around here that the king was here. Do
you mind just telling us one key usually unknown fact about this place? Maybe something we've not talked about?
Mostly, I would say this, I got this experience myself when I was here. If you speak these things of more of spiritual and tradition, somebody will say, no, those who are creating their own like stuff. I was here, I had an experience with the visitors. I had a group of like 5. Yeah, it was more of my personal experience. Then we were here inside, it was like evening, like at exactly 6 p.m. We had something which struck up there. I don't know what was it. They told me it could happen each and every evening. I don't know what was it for sure. But when I asked, they told me that the kings had returned back. They had gone somewhere. But the house changed, even the atmosphere changed. The visitors asked me, what's that? I also had nothing to tell them. They asked me, what's that? Have you had something? Something hit up from the ceiling. And then the atmosphere changed immediately here. As if something had come in and you couldn't see it. So, but that was my experience, me myself. When I moved out, I asked, they told me, oh, you didn't know. The kings had returned. Maybe they had gone somewhere. Now they were back. Maybe this was too spiritual for me to understand.
Yeah, perfect. That's a nice way to end the conversation. Coming up in our 7-part series on the history of the Great Kingdom of Buganda.
You know, one of the reasons why Buganda's constitution was never written. Buganda's constitution was never written, even when we learned how to read and write. Up to now, the no. It is because we have come to realize that anything written can easily be destroyed as well. The sensitive things of Buganda are better unwritten and only told to the people responsible and concerned.
So, can we take on Kasubi Tombs as an icon for the bigger Buganda? Yes, it's possible. Not that because it's for the Baganda. If we look back, by the way, look at it this way. In Buganda, the king takes on the mother's totem.
Generally, Africa, we have lost a lot of skills, traditions, and norms. I think it is because of the it's a problem of brain welfare, that people tend to think that what has come today is better than what was here.
I think that is where we are missing out on a lot. That is why you see someone may be surprised when Jonathan says that Kasubi is among the top 3.
The top 3, yeah.
Because we don't see it. But for someone who comes from out there, reads or hears the story of Kasubi, they come with so much respect, so much adornment for this site. So I think we might have a missing piece there.